everyone, Alex at Corumdale Farm. I thought there was enough time before Christmas to show you some of my favorite gardening flower books that would be great to give to someone who loves flowers and gardening, or to put on your Christmas list yourself. So I went through my library and I picked out all of my favorite books that I have, and I've sorted them into a couple categories. I'll put those categories in the description box so you can see if there's a category that is more relevant to you, but this is all-encompassing gardening, floral arranging, flower farming, coffee table books, just books that I really enjoy having on my bookshelf for a variety of reasons, and I'll tell you why. So first category is flowers, obviously, big shocker. Flowers and flower farming. So the number one book I would recommend for anyone that is either beginning the interest of even thinking about starting a flower farm, or you want to incorporate more flowers in your garden and to grow enough flowers to cut your own arrangements or just learn more about flowers, you can't go wrong with Floret. She is the queen of queens for flowers, and her book, Cut Flower Garden, is the ultimate 101 book on how to grow beautiful cut flowers in small spaces, large spaces. It really is a wonderful book, and her husband's photography in the book is beautiful. So this would be my number one Flower 101 book that I would suggest to get for yourself or for someone who loves flowers. Another one would be, this one is a bit smaller, but I've really loved her. This is Niki Irving's Growing Flowers. She is a flower farmer in North Carolina, I believe. Her Instagram is absolutely beautiful. And this book is very similar to Floret's Cut Flower Garden. She does a great job of walking you through how to plan a cutting garden. Some of her language is more geared towards flower farmers, but really you can apply these principles to whichever space you're working with, whether it's a raised garden or in your landscape, or you have a 30-foot row that you want to fill with flowers to cut, or again, if you are thinking about flower farming, this is a really great intro book. And again, beautiful photography. That's one of the fun things about getting flower books, is you can just drool over the beautiful, perfect flower pictures that they take for these. Another small intro book I would recommend is called Small Farms, Big Dreams. I'll put all of these books that I mentioned in the description box, so you don't have to write them all down. But this is from Pepper Harrow Farm in, I believe they're in Iowa. They have a wonderful YouTube channel for their flower farm, beautiful Instagram, and they just released this, I want to say sometime this year, I believe. It's a small soft cover book, but they do a great job explaining their journey of beginning a flower farm, how they've scaled up, and how they really became what they are now, which is a pretty sizable flower farm. So it's really interesting. If you're interested more in the flower farming world and the floral business, I found this one very interesting, kind of like an inside peek. So I enjoyed that one. For this category, I started kind of at the intro 101, and I'm scaling up in the focus more towards flower farming and getting away from just general cut flower gardening. And so my next recommendation is the Flower Farmer's Year. I don't see this one mentioned a ton. I got it on Amazon and I really loved it. The subtitle is How to Grow Cut Flowers for Pleasure and Profit. So of course you could apply a lot of these principles again if you had a cutting garden, but she has some interesting discussion about profitability in flower farming, which is important if you're going to spend all that effort and plant all these wonderful things. And again, the photography is absolutely beautiful. I really enjoyed her categories. She covers a lot of plants and bulbs, and I really enjoyed it. Georgie, Newbery. This book, I think almost every flower grower should have, even if you're not selling your flowers or pursuing a flower farm, but you just want to grow flowers for the longest part of the year as you can and really expand your growing horizons. Because typically with cutting gardens, everyone does a fairly good job in summer when you can plant the cosmos and the zinnias and the sunflowers, and your just garden is bursting post-frost, and it's really enjoyable. But if you want to scale up, you really want to stretch yourself and grow your garden space to include 3 seasons instead of just your summer flowers. This book by Lisa Mason Ziegler is a must. It's called Cool Flowers, and it's not cool as in like rad. It's cool as in they are flowers that can handle the cold. And this is transformative in your garden space when you learn her principles of planting flowers in the fall to overwinter and bloom in the spring, or in some colder zones when that's a bit harder to do, planting in early spring to enjoy around the April-May time frame when you can't be planting your cold tender flowers like the zinnias and the sunflowers that I mentioned. But this book walks you through to how to do flowers like foxgloves and bachelor buttons and larkspur and snapdragons and all those English cottage garden flowers. That's what I think of when I hear a lot of cool flowers. I think of those that you see in beautiful English cottage gardens. And this is really transformative. Learning how to grow hardy annuals to expand your flower growing season and give you more color to enjoy at your house, or for flower farming, expanding what you have to offer outside of just the summer season. So Cool Flowers by Lisa Mason Ziegler. It's a wonderful reference book. She explains the concepts in the beginning, and then she goes, each flower has its own profile page, and she explains to you all the ins and outs of how to handle that particular flower. Last up in the flower farming category, as we've scaled up in intensity, if you will, is what I've heard described as like the flower farming Bible. It's the Flower Farmer by Lynn Basinski. She wrote pretty much the first big book on how to become a flower farmer. Before Floret and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all of that, where we've learned about flower farming, this was the book that came out, and this was the book that inspired women like Lisa Mason Ziegler, who became a flower farmer and relied heavily on Lynn's book. So this is a much more technical book. It's very focused on flower farming, but again, if that is of interest to you, I recommend getting it, and it really will bring you to the next level in your flower farming journey. And I have much to learn from this book. I actually am hoping this winter to read it more cover to cover instead of just looking at references and stuff, but really dig into this winter. So that is my cut flower garden and flower farming category. The next category is still with flowers, but it's floral arranging. So you either want to grow a cut flower garden, not flower farming, but you want to have a cut flower garden, and you want to more beautifully arrange those flowers that you're growing, or alternatively, say you're not that interested in growing the flowers yourself, but you really enjoy going to your local flower farmer like me and picking up a beautiful bouquet, and you want to learn what you can do with that, or feel inspired of what to do with your flowers instead of like plunking all the stems just straight into an upright cylinder vase and calling it a day. So I have a couple books that I recommend for floral arranging and learning how to do that, and it's an area where I want to improve, and so I reference these books a lot and I like to look at them. A lot of it is inspiration, but there's also some great technical explanation. So first up is Floret, again the queen, and this one is called A Year in Flowers. I believe this was her second book that came out after Cut Flower Garden, and what she does in this book is absolutely beautiful. She goes through all 4 seasons, showing you floral arrangements that you can make with flowers that are in bloom in that particular season. Because one of the things you see typically with traditional florists is they're able to import wholesale flowers through all times of the year because they can get them worldwide with flowers grown in greenhouses. And so, for example, you'll see a bouquet that has peonies and dahlias in it. It's like, well, in real life, peonies and dahlias aren't blooming at the same time. One's a spring flower and one is more of a late summer fall flower, but they can combine them in their floral arrangements. But as I am a proponent of local flowers and shopping local for a variety of reasons, you're not going to be able to make that same type of an arrangement that you would be able to buy at a florist shop or what you would see more in wedding work. And I think Floret has done a wonderful job of showing you arrangements that you can make with flowers that are in season and that you can get your hands on either by growing yourself or by buying flowers from your local farmer that is only growing flowers that can bloom at that time. And so I'm just peeking here. What she does also that is really wonderful is she walks you through, let's see if this can even, I might even put a picture on the screen, but she'll show a picture of the arrangement to give you beautiful inspiration. And then here on the side, she lists out all of her ingredients used. And so you can see the types of, she has like structural foliage, textural ingredients, supporting flowers, and she tells you what they are so you can see the components that are in the arrangement. She also breaks it down beautifully so you can see how she put it together. For example, that was a peony arrangement and she has roses in it because peony and roses will be blooming often at the same time. And she helps you, she walks through how to create something like that. And I really love that, especially for an inspiration, to see the types of flowers that are all blooming at once in mutual seasons. So the spring flowers and what spring arrangements really can look like. So this is a wonderful inspiration book, coffee table book. It's really worth having. Another flower arranging book I would recommend is called the Flower Recipe Book. This is very similar in layout to Floret's in that they really break down how they made the arrangement. And so it's a great way to learn, not just looking at a picture and saying, I have no idea how they did that or what is even in it and how I would replicate that. This book truly breaks it down like a recipe. So they give you the picture so you have wonderful inspiration, and then it'll give you the recipe and it'll say 12 dahlias, 5 snapdragons, 5 astilbe, and it tells you what's in the arrangement, and it gives you the opportunity also to substitute in flowers that you could get your hands on. So if you couldn't get your hands on astilbe, you can figure out a nice substitute that would get you a similar look to the picture. So it's like a recipe, just like if you were baking. And another thing it includes is the breakdown of how to do it. So again, this is a really great, I think, way to practice your floral arranging and get better at it if that's an area that you want to improve on. So the Flower Recipe Book, I've really enjoyed. 2 more in this category. This one is called the Floral Workshop. It's again similar to Floret and the recipe book, and it will break down the arrangements for you. It'll tell you exactly what's in it, but instead of doing straight seasonal flowers like Floret's inspiration was, this one goes through, how do I describe it? Like categories or themes of arrangement. So it'll have like a sunny yellow or a tonal or a monochromatic look, and that is the category breakdowns that they do. Or really focusing on like a focal flower, and they'll have a bunch of pictures of like different dahlia arrangements or how to handle fruit tree blossoms and have a focus on that. So I really loved this again for inspiration, but it helps show you what sorts of flowers will do well together and what's a good foliage to support your focal flower. And again, a great learning book that breaks it down really specifically, and it's not just like you're looking on Pinterest and you see something magical and you're like, I have no idea how to break that down in any way that I could replicate. These books that I'm sharing with you, I think, do a really great job at that. So the Floral Workshop. Last book in this category is, Alex, I don't want to buy a million books. I want something that's a little more all-encompassing. And so I showed you like the Cut Flower Garden. Doesn't focus as much on arranging and more about growing. And then I just showed you a bunch of floral inspiration books that is just the arranging and not the growing. This book is all in one. So this one is called In Bloom, and the subtitle is Growing, Harvesting, and Arranging Homegrown Flowers Year-Round. So it's kind of like a fusion of all of those books I just told you about. So if you were to buy one book for yourself or for someone who loves to grow their own cut flower garden and loves to arrange inside, this would be the book I recommend. It is really wonderful. It goes through every flower you could think of, how to grow it, how to take care of it, and then how to harvest it and take care of it in a vase so that you get the best vase life out of it. And then there's also lots of beautiful arranging pictures for inspiration. So this would be my all-in-one flower book. Not flower farming, but flower growing book and arranging. I would pick this one. To finish my flower theme for books I'd recommend, I've put these books more in a coffee table category. They're not how-tos. It's not a huge 101 focus on how to grow and harvest and take care of, but really just celebrating how beautiful flowers are, how beautiful flowers can be, and it's just so enjoyable to just sit down and just drool at all of the beautiful pictures. The first one in that category is Floret. Again, Floret has 3 books. I've listed her 3 books that she has here in this video. This one's called Discovering Dahlias, A Guide to Growing and Arranging Magnificent Blooms. The beginning of this book does have some good 101 explanations on how to grow dahlias if you're interested in that, but so much of this book is just beautiful pictures of like every dahlia variety you can think of, and Floret does a wonderful job with organizing them by color and tone and shape. And so, for example, she'll have a raspberry dahlia category and then just give you like 20 different dahlias that fall into that category. So if you have someone who loves dahlias, or you love dahlias and you want to expand your collection, learn about different varieties, or make a new list of things to buy, as the sales will start here in January, February timeframe, this is a wonderful book to just be introduced to dahlias or to increase your obsession if that's what you have. But again, this is just a great coffee table book too, because it's just picture after picture of beautiful dahlias. And the last books I have to share in the flower category are from Georgianna Lane. She is a famous floral photographer. She's a wonderful follow on Instagram, and she has a huge range of books that she's published with her photography on different categories of flowers and locations that she's traveled to. I only have one of them here in front of me, and this is her Dahlia book. She has another co-author with her, but it's a Dahlia book. But this one, instead of any growing information, it is just like picture after picture of stunning, beautiful dahlia photography. And so if you just truly enjoy looking at beautiful flowers and feeling inspired and exposed to new varieties you've never seen before, this book is wonderful. And I was looking on Amazon before I recorded this video, and she has a peony one, a hydrangea, lilies. She has London in bloom, Paris in bloom. It's a beautiful book. So if you have someone who maybe does enjoy growing flowers or just likes to look at them, I think these books are beautiful to have on your coffee table and on your shelf and pull out in the dreary winter months when nothing else is growing and you just want to think about your plan for next year. I would recommend Georgianna Lane's books. So you're probably saying, Alex, that was a ridiculous amount of books. I am not going to buy all of them. That's overwhelming. So I thought I'd break down my top 3 recommendations based on my categories. So if you were to only buy 3 books out of my library, I would pick these 3. The first one I would pick would be the In Bloom book. That was the one I told you that was all-encompassing. It's how to grow, harvest, and arrange flowers. It's all in one, really, really wonderful and comprehensive. So I would pick that one, even though Cut Flower Garden truly is one of the best 101 flower books. It doesn't deal with arranging as much. So that's why this one got the vote over that one, which would typically win. For straight flower arranging, I would pick A Year in Flowers. I'm biased towards local flowers, and I think that Erin at Floret has done a wonderful job of really focusing on just the flowers you can grow locally and arrange all together, instead of mixing the different blooms more florist style with imported flowers. So I would pick this one for arranging as my top one. And then lastly, in the gardening category, I would pick Jessica's First Time Gardener book. It is wonderful for first-time gardeners, but also just has really great remind you principles you can reference and look. If I am having this bug problem, when do I need to start this seed? Remind me on when to transplant. I mean, it's just a really, really good overview book that's not too technical, and a great start for anyone that's wanting to really up growing food for their family. So those would be the top 3, even though you should buy all of them. So I hope those books were helpful. I have a couple more books that are on my wish list that I hope to get for Christmas to expand my library, but I would recommend all of these books. I think they're really enjoyable, they're inspirational, they're helpful in those cold winter months and for planning next year. If you have any books that I missed that you think I should put on my Christmas list, put them in the comments below. I love expanding our library and knowledge and just enjoying beautiful flower and vegetable photography. So add some of these books to your Christmas list or buy them for someone that you know that might love to start growing flowers or expand their flower range. I'll see you in the next video. Oh, that was a lot of straight talking.
Wow, you could take a break.